have to remember not to call you Stanley. Leslie, do people do that? Like, do people?
All the time. You know,
Like people,
and
you be walking down the street.
and they scream Stanley, and I'm like, oh, I said that means you watched the show. This is a good thing, you know. So
how does it feel to first of all be back home?
it's good to be back. I hadn't been here in almost 3 years. You know, the pandemic, you know, that cut down on a lot of travel, and every time I would think about coming, the rates would go up, and you know, it was like I don't want to be on a plane in a confined space, and you know, so I stayed at home a lot, maybe too much, to the point where the, you know, people who deliver the food, they called one day when they hadn't heard from me in a couple of weeks, and they said, we were concerned about you, Mr. Baker. We hadn't heard from you. And I said, I know the Department of Aging and the fire department, police, they would do wellness checks, but I didn't know that the people who deliver food would do a wellness check, but they did. And I was like, I'm fine. I'm just sitting here trying not to get too fat. So, but yeah.
So you must have had a good childhood here. You enjoyed growing up in Chicago.
I did. Started out on 38th and Lake Park before it was scooped out of the ground and they built whatever's there now. Then moved to further south side in the 70s, then moved out to Roseland, went to Mendel High School, went to St. Leo Elementary and then Mendel High School. Graduated from Mendel, went to Loyola here and in Rome, and came back, graduated a few years after that, went and finished my master's at Spertus College, which is now Spertus Institute of Judaica, right next to Columbia, in Michigan. Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, so I did a few things.
I was talking to Kate, it's like, it's almost hard to believe that it's been 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Since you all have taped the show.
Yeah, our last episode was, I think, the March 13th, I think. Yeah, it's been 10 years, but it seems like yesterday, probably because we run into each other at the Comic-Cons and speaking at universities and things of that sort. But also, the show it's on the air more now than it was when we were doing it. And part of that is because of the pandemic. One day during the course of the pandemic, I saw that it was on 83 times in one day. And I don't even look at myself in the mirror 83 times in one day. So it was like, oh my gosh. And now it's averaging about 24 to 30 times a day in LA. I don't know what it's doing here, but multiply that times 50 plus states and then several different countries. And, you know, millions of people are seeing that show a day. So it's unbelievable.
So when you were doing the show, did you have any idea it was going to be so popular?
I didn't know it was going to be as popular as it is now. I knew that people were going to enjoy it. The first inkling I got that it was successful was when we got nominated for an Emmy. And, you know, the show ended up winning, you know, and we started getting awards for Ensemble, Screen Actors Guild, TV Land Awards, AFI Awards, things of that nature. And then, you know, when the show ended, I thought, okay, we're in syndication. It's going to show maybe a couple of times a week or so. And then the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden people were at home and they were looking for something that they could watch, you know, with their families and all that, and it just mushroomed. So
it's crazy.
It is. It really is.
The show, and you, I mean, it's one of my favorite shows for sure.
Thank you. I think I have 8-year-olds coming up to me, 80-year-olds coming up, and they, you know, connect with the show because the personality types never change. Whether you are in grammar school, high school, work at a hospital, go to church, any auxiliary clubs you might belong to, what have you, if you work with human beings, you see those personality types wherever you are throughout the course of your life. So it will never change. Those personality types, you're going to always see somebody who's going to be fastidious and they're going to hold the keys to the supply cabinet, and you're going to have somebody who's overzealous and sucking up to the boss. You're going to have somebody like a Stanley who's like, oh God, I don't want to be here. I'm just waiting for retirement or death, whichever one comes first. And so, you know, yeah.
I love it. I love it. Do you enjoy the reunions?
I do very much, and also speaking at the colleges and universities, because you may or may not know, during the course of filming the show, we didn't have a studio audience. nor did we have that, that fake laugh track of the dead people going ha 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 that have been gone to glory 100 years ago. So we never had any of that. So now, we get to meet fans and see people, because when we were on set, it was just us and the crew. So we didn't have any studio audience contact, and we really didn't have a gauge of, that immediate feedback that you get with live theater or with a studio audience. So, now when people come up and they tell us what the show meant to us, to them, and, how they react to it, and, I've developed a very fond appreciation of it. When people walk up and say, I was having chemotherapy and throwing up in a bucket and my family was concerned, but they were standing around me and we would watch The Office, and I would stop for a minute and laugh at the show, and that would take my mind off of what was going on. And when people come up and tell stories like that, I go like, oh, okay. So we did some good stuff, so.
Now you don't seem really anything like Stan, like you seem a lot more animated than Stan.
I am. I spent 9 years on set getting me and turning it down. And that's the acting part. Lower the voice, slow the gait. Greg Daniels allowed us the opportunity to put the meat on the bones that he created, and find the little idiosyncrasies of our character and utilize those. The crossword puzzle thing, that was not written anywhere. That was something that I came up with when they did a conference room scene. And he said, bring in anything that you would need that would show that you're, at this meeting but not of this company. And I went, and I looked around in the drawers on set and I found an old crossword puzzle book. So I grabbed the little book and a number 2 pencil, and I made the decision. I said, I'm going to deliver my first line to Steve Carell not looking at him. I'm just going to answer him and keep doing this puzzle. And if the director doesn't like it, then he'll say, don't do that. Look and deliver your line. But he liked, that because it conveyed this person really does not want to be here, and he's like, ugh. And that developed, that was the start of Stanley with the, crossword puzzle, and everywhere he would go, he'd whip this book out. And I went through quite a few crossword puzzle books. They get sweaty and crumbly and all that, but, so, that was the crossword puzzle thing, so. But Greg, we were fortunate to work with an executive, producer who allowed us to try things and experiment, and, it was a fun time.
I think most people who are like involved in sitcoms or really any show, you hope that you have legs like The Office has legs.
You do, and this is like lightning. It struck, and do I anticipate anything like this happening in the future on other projects? It would be nice, but if it doesn't happen, I'm okay, because it happened one good time, and it's still happening every day, so I'm very appreciative of that.
And what are you doing these days?
I am working on a movie with Paul Feig in Atlanta. He did a lot of the episodes of The Office. He also did Bridesmaids. He did Ghostbusters. So he called me up and said he had a role for me in this film with Awkwafina, John Cena. So I'm getting a chance to do that. I finish up next week. So, working on that. I'm supposed to start another film in November, I think. Just did a Cheerios commercial with Phyllis in St. Louis.
I've seen you on
And the Bee.
Yes, those are awesome.
So that was my second Cheerios, so it was great to have an opportunity to work with them again. So, so I flew to St. Louis, and Phyllis and I got to, connect again. We had spoken on the phone, but we hadn't seen each other. So Zach Woods directed, so.
Do you stay in touch with folks?
We do, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep, I do.
Like that.
Yeah.
Did you want to be, you wanted to be an actor and comedy, or did you fall into it?
I originally went to school. I thought I was going to be a doctor, and then I was like, no. And then I worked for a number of years I worked for the Board of Ed. Then I switched over to the city of Chicago to the Office of Cable Communications. And then when the AIDS pandemic broke out, they needed somebody with an evaluation background. So I went to the Office of AIDS Prevention Program and Policy. Yeah. So I was an administrator there and evaluated a lot of HIV/AIDS education prevention programs throughout the city. I think there was like at the time 33. So I was going to the jails, the housing projects and all of that, showing people how to evaluate their programs and report to the city so we could report to the CDC so pass-through funds could be brought back into the city of Chicago. So then when I left there, that's when I went to Hollywood, and I was there for 1 month, and I booked my first job over at Paramount on a TV show called Maggie, I think, or something. And I played an ice cream truck vendor who found a porcupine in his garage and took it to the vet. I don't know.
So you always had it in your mind that you were going to do it. It's just you got...
It was a hobby. When I was working at the health department and at the Office of Cable Communications and the Board of Ed, I was doing it as a hobby. I did theater, I did extra work, I did commercials. When I left here, I had 2 national commercials running and a regional commercial. So when I got to LA, it was easy to find commercial representation. Theatrical rep I had met the year before I left to finally move to LA. So when I got there, I called the agent up on the phone and I went, "Hi, I'm here, Leslie. I can't do anything for you till you move to LA. I'm in my apartment in LA." And he said, I gave him the address. He said, "You're 5 blocks away from my mother's house." Yeah, I'm serious. I'm here, And he started sending me out, and I learned my way around LA. That was before GPS in cars, so I had this big book called The Thomas Guide in my lap, and you're driving and flipping pages, and luckily I didn't run into anything, but doing good. We got a truck coming in with hay. Are we doing a barnyard something tomorrow? Are we expecting animals? This isn't our pay that we're getting for being here, is it? No? Okay. There's hay. Is there animal life?
Green Acres.
Oh, Green Acres. Oliver, darling.
But how long did it take you from then to the office? How long was that?
It was a 6-year period.
6 years?
6 years, but I was doing Malcolm in the Middle, Scrubs, Just Shoot Me, The Guardian, Judging Amy, bunch of shows, bunch of commercials, several, I did, let's see, 1, 2, 3. I've done 3 Super Bowl commercials since I've been, which is rare for, an actor to get 1, and I've done 3. I did one with John Travolta and Martha Stewart and Carl Weathers, and, so got to do that. And that was at the height of the, COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
So we all were on set, but we just kind of waving from trailer windows and on walkie-talkies, "Tell so-and-so hi," because I can't get close up on you, but, stayed relatively healthy. I got COVID once, right after Christmas because, people were breathing on me. But I didn't have any, I still had my sense of smell and taste and all of that. Boy, did I have my sense of taste. I was eating up everything. But, went on a diet. I lost 80 pounds. 80. Yes, I hired a trainer. And I always tease him that, I said, "Raphael, were you gonna chase me around with a dirty board with 2 rusty nails in it and going like, stop eating?" But, I hired, somebody to cook meals, because whenever I hear celebrities going, "It's so hard to lose weight," you got enough money to hire somebody to cook you some meals and chase you around with a board with rusty nails in it, put a padlock on that fridge or something, but
Well, I have plenty for the piece. It's so wonderful to talk to you.
Thank you.
You are amazing.
Thank you.
Enjoyed you on the show. Still watch it.
Thank you.
It's one of my favorite go-tos.
So much.
You did the numbers, so now I'm gonna use those. That's interesting. I didn't realize it was. I knew it was on a lot, but I didn't realize it was that much.
Yeah,
So
it's on a lot. Sure, absolutely.
Was there anything else you wanted to say that you want people to know about coming down?
Come on down. We're going to have a good time. We're going to laugh. We're going to, be safe. So if you got firearms, leave all of that at home. We're trying to get the Chicago reputation back positive again. So, all of the craziness that I hear about from friends and relatives and on the news, it's time to stop all of that. It needs to stop. Yeah, it's gotten ridiculous. And, if somebody says something or does something to you you don't like, then talk it out. You don't need to shoot somebody. It's like, stop it, because bullets are too permanent,
We didn't grow up like that.
We did not grow up like that, and we don't need to do that now. We've got more in terms of technology and, more, we've gotten more violent, and it needs to stop. We don't need automatic weapons and all of that. It's not necessary. And maybe, we need to have the people in Washington stop taking donations from the NRA for their campaigns, and maybe, these AR-15s and the rest of this stuff, maybe it'll stop. You don't need that. Nobody is going on urban safari. It needs to stop.
It's smart.
Yeah.
Maybe you could come back and run for office if you...
Oh God, no. I worked for the city already. I served. I worked for, like I said, the Board of Ed and cable communications and the health department. I have served the city. God bless them, but nope. Wouldn't do it again. I don't have the temperament at this point.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Lovely.